Daniel chapter 1 verse 7 is where Nebuchadnezzar, as they took over, he was king of Babylon and went into Jerusalem and seized it, and they brought some of the educated, well-rounded individuals over to Babylon to be trained, and of them, 4 of them that are mentioned is in verse 6 actually. Among these were some from Judah: Daniel, Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah. The chief officials gave them new names: Daniel, the name Belteshazzar; to Hananiah, Shadrach; to Mishael, Meshach; and to Azariah, Abednego. And so we know them as Daniel, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. And what's interesting is that Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, or Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah, their Babylonian names kind of stuck with them later on, and when we read in the scripture. But Daniel's name, he always was called Daniel throughout the book. We even have called the book of Daniel. And one of the reasons is because he held on to his faith in God. He held on to his Jewish heritage. He held on to it so strongly that even the name they gave him didn't stick. Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, it stuck a little bit. Of course, we know they stood up when everybody bowed down to the golden image, and they were thrown into the fiery furnace, and God protected them. But Daniel was really the main leader and the one that really set the course when it came to the king's food being given to them. Daniel was the one that said, no, we're not going to eat the food. And then Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, or Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah, they kind of went along with Daniel, and they did the same thing. And they were blessed. For 3 years, they were trained in all the ways of the Babylonians, were just full of wisdom and knowledge and training. And, that's one of the things that sometimes we forget. We think of these things that happened, thousands of years ago or way back when, and we think, well, they were, ignorant or primitive or something like that. And it's not the case at all. I mean, look at places like Egypt, where they built the pyramids and the construction that they did. Babylon was just amazing, the construction they had. I mean, they had knowledge. They had ability. You look at like the Mayans. They've got these like pyramids that align perfectly during the winter solstice and the summer solstice. I mean, within just centimeters of exactness that they were able to build. And they had a lot of knowledge lined up perfectly with stars and things like that. A lot of ability. Look at when Moses goes to Pharaoh and says, let my people go. And the magicians, are able to take their staffs, throw them down, and turn into serpents. And it wasn't a magic trick like we think of tricks. It wasn't sleight of hand. They didn't like hide their staff and then throw a snake down. The staff literally turned into a serpent. They knew magic arts, powerful magic arts. They were able to duplicate some of the things Moses did. There is reality in those worlds of some of those things, dark magic. Maybe you've heard of like the Egyptian Book of the Dead and stuff. And then they look at the embalming that they did with the bodies. I mean, there's still mummies from way back then today where it's like there's still skin on them and stuff, and you can still kind of see what they look like. I mean, that's how well preserved they were. Can you imagine the advances they had and the knowledge that they had? And so Daniel and these others were trained in all these things, and they had a lot of knowledge and a lot of ability. But the great thing that Daniel had from God was this I don't want to say it wrong, ability to interpret dreams is what I was going to say. But really, even when it came to the dreams, Nebuchadnezzar has a dream, and he tells all these magicians and all these different ones and all these ones that knew all the stuff, they said, tell me my dream and then interpret it for me. And they're all like, oh, king, that's not how it works. You have to tell us your dream, then we'll interpret it. You got. He's like, no, you tell me the dream and interpret it. And they're like, how are we going to know what dream you had? And Daniel prays and they fast, and God reveals the dream to him. And when he does that, Daniel says, it's not me that knows your dream, it's God that knows your dream, and he's telling me it. And he makes it very clear that it wasn't his power, it wasn't his strength, but it was the God of gods, the King of kings, the Lord of lords, the true living God that was able to reveal the dream to him. And then, and this happened several times in Nebuchadnezzar's reign and in other kings that came after him, even in Babylon, where they would see God do something amazing like that, and then they'd put out this proclamation, okay, their God's a real God, you need to serve him. And then later, what comes after that? And then he makes a golden statue of himself. It's like, bow down, worship that. And it's just
humble.
Yeah.
And then he starts getting full of himself again.
Yeah, exactly. And that's what happens. And that's one of the ways, as we're have this overriding theme of principalities, powers, rulers of darkness, and these types of things, with leaders and with government. This is one of the things that will happen. There will be individuals that are leaders in government, leaders in business, leaders in all different areas, where they'll see God do something and they'll be like, oh, wow, God's real, and for a while they'll commit, and then later they start to get all full of themselves again, become their own God, become their own leader.